One missile was all it took to change the atmosphere of an entire city. In a matter of hours, more than 50,000 people were forced to leave Haifa, turning ordinary life into uncertainty, fear, and urgent survival. But beyond the headlines and evacuation orders lies a deeper lesson about how fragile modern stability truly is, and how quickly crisis can reshape human priorities, emotions, and entire societies. There are moments in history when people realize that the world they believed was stable can change in a single second. One missile, one explosion, one decision made thousands of miles away, and suddenly an entire city begins to move. Families leave their homes carrying bags instead of certainty. Streets once filled with noise become quiet. Schools close. Businesses shut down. Parents try to stay calm while children ask questions nobody can fully answer. Reports of tens of thousands evacuating Haifa after a missile strike are not just about military strategy or geopolitics. They are about something deeper. They reveal how fragile modern civilization truly is and how quickly human beings are forced to confront reality. We live in a world obsessed with the illusion of permanence. We build cities as if they will last forever. We create routines and schedules as though tomorrow is guaranteed. We believe technology, wealth, and military power can completely shield us from uncertainty. But history repeatedly teaches the same lesson. Stability is never permanent. And yet, this is not only a story about fear, it is also a story about adaptation, resilience, and the hidden strength human beings discover when everything familiar begins to shake. Think about what happens psychologically when an entire population hears evacuation orders. One day, people are drinking coffee by the harbor, going to work, arguing about ordinary things, scrolling through phones, planning vacations. The next day, they are deciding what possessions matter enough to carry into uncertainty. In those moments, human priorities become brutally clear. People stop asking, how successful am I? They begin asking, who matters most to me? They stop thinking about convenience. They start thinking about survival. They stop worrying about status. They begin valuing safety, family, and peace. Crisis strips away illusion, and perhaps that is one of the most uncomfortable truths of our time. Modern societies often mistake comfort for strength, but comfort does not build resilience. Difficulty does, pressure does, uncertainty does. History shows us that human beings grow strongest not during moments of ease, but during moments when they are forced to adapt faster than they thought possible. A missile changes more than buildings. It changes psychology. It changes assumptions. It changes the emotional atmosphere of an entire nation. Suddenly, concepts that once felt distant become personal. War is no longer a headline. It becomes the sound of sirens at night, the fear in a parent's eyes, the silence of an emptied apartment. And yet, even in moments like these, humanity reveals something remarkable. People continue helping strangers. Families protect each other. Volunteers appear. Emergency workers continue despite danger. Ordinary individuals discover extraordinary courage hidden inside them. That is one of the paradoxes of crisis. While destruction exposes vulnerability, it also reveals character. Human beings are more adaptable than they realize. The real lesson is not only about missiles or conflict, it is about preparedness, emotional, intellectual, and moral preparedness. Most people spend their lives preparing financially or professionally, but very few prepare psychologically for instability. They assume the systems around them will always function normally, but history does not move in straight lines. It moves through shocks, disruptions, collapses, and reinventions. And the societies that survive are not necessarily the strongest militarily or economically. Often, they are the societies capable of adapting emotionally and mentally to sudden change. That is why resilience matters more than comfort. When people hear about evacuations, many immediately think about politics. But beneath politics lies a more universal human truth. Every civilization exists closer to uncertainty than it wants to admit. One event can disrupt assumptions built over decades. One strike can expose vulnerabilities nobody wanted to acknowledge. One crisis can force leaders, citizens, and entire nations to rethink what security actually means. But this lesson also applies to individual life. Most people experience their own version of one missile changed everything. Sometimes it is not literal war. Sometimes it is a phone call from a doctor, a financial collapse, a betrayal, a sudden loss, a tragedy that arrives without warning and divides life into before and after. And when those moments come, people discover whether their identity was built only on comfort or whether they developed inner resilience strong enough to survive instability. That is why emotional strength matters so deeply. The strongest people are not those who never face chaos. They are the ones who learn how to remain steady inside it. They adapt. They think clearly under pressure. They refuse to let fear completely control their decisions. And even when circumstances become painful, they continue moving forward one step at a time. Fear spreads quickly during crisis because uncertainty attacks the human mind. People begin imagining worst-case scenarios. Anxiety grows faster than facts. Rumors move faster than truth. But history shows that panic rarely solves problems. Calm thinking does. In difficult moments, emotional discipline becomes survival. A society under pressure reveals its deepest values. Some people respond with hatred, others with courage. Some spread fear, others create stability. Some collapse emotionally, while others become sources of strength for everyone around them. Crisis acts like fire. It exposes what was already inside people all along. And perhaps the greatest lesson from moments like this is that peace should never be taken for granted. Human beings often appreciate peace only after hearing the sound of instability. We assume ordinary mornings will always remain ordinary. But true wisdom understands that peace is precious precisely because it is fragile. That awareness should not make people live in fear. It should make them live with clarity. Clarity about what truly matters. Clarity about the importance of resilience. Clarity about the danger of arrogance and complacency. Clarity about the need for wisdom during uncertain times. Because in the end, civilizations are not tested during moments of comfort. They are tested during moments when fear, uncertainty, and pressure suddenly arrive without warning. And the future belongs to those who can remain thoughtful, adaptable, disciplined, and united when everything around them begins to change. Modern civilization is built on an invisible assumption that tomorrow will look roughly like today. People wake up, commute to work, open businesses, attend schools, make future plans, and assume the systems around them will continue functioning normally. Cities appear permanent, infrastructure feels reliable, technology creates the illusion that humanity has mastered uncertainty. But moments of sudden crisis remind the world that stability is often far more fragile than people want to believe. When a single missile strike can trigger the evacuation of tens of thousands of people from a major city, the event becomes more than a military incident. It becomes a psychological shock. It forces society to confront an uncomfortable truth. Modern life can change dramatically in a matter of minutes. One day, people are discussing ordinary concerns: careers, entertainment, social media, business deals, exams, traffic, vacations. The next day, families are packing emergency bags, searching for safe routes, checking the news constantly, and wondering whether their homes will still be standing tomorrow. That sudden transition reveals how quickly comfort can disappear. And that realization is deeply unsettling because human beings naturally crave predictability. People build emotional security around routines. They feel safe when life appears structured and controlled. But crisis disrupts the illusion of control. It exposes how vulnerable even advanced societies remain. This is why moments like these carry such emotional power. They force people to reevaluate what truly matters. During ordinary times, many people become consumed by status, competition, and superficial concerns. They worry constantly about image, wealth, recognition, and social comparison. But during crisis, priorities shift immediately. A parent no longer cares about prestige when trying to protect a child. A family fleeing danger is not thinking about luxury or convenience. In moments of uncertainty, human beings rediscover the importance of basic things: safety, connection, trust, shelter, and peace. Crisis strips away distraction. It reveals what people genuinely value beneath the noise of modern life. That is why history repeatedly shows that difficult moments often become periods of clarity. Comfort can sometimes numb societies intellectually and emotionally. People begin assuming stability is permanent. They stop preparing mentally for disruption. They become dependent on systems they barely understand. But when those systems suddenly appear vulnerable, people are forced to think differently. A missile does not only damage buildings, it changes psychology. It alters the emotional atmosphere of an entire society. It introduces uncertainty into daily life. And uncertainty is one of the most powerful emotional forces human beings experience. Uncertainty changes how people think, behave, and relate to one another. Some react with fear, some react with anger, some become more united, others become more divided. Crisis exposes character both individually and collectively. And perhaps the most important lesson is that resilience matters more than comfort. Modern societies often measure success through convenience and efficiency, but resilience is something entirely different. Resilience is the ability to function under pressure, adapt during instability, and remain psychologically steady when circumstances suddenly change. That kind of strength cannot be developed overnight. It must be built through discipline, awareness, preparation, and emotional maturity. History teaches that civilizations are rarely destroyed only by external threats. Often, they weaken internally first. Complacency grows. Societies become distracted by trivial conflicts. People lose perspective. Comfort creates fragility because individuals stop preparing for hardship. Then crisis arrives unexpectedly, and suddenly, everyone realizes how much they took for granted. Electricity, transportation, communication systems, public safety, ordinary routines, simple peace. Human beings often appreciate stability only after they experience instability. But these lessons are not only political or national, they are deeply personal as well. Every individual eventually experiences some version of sudden disruption. Sometimes it comes through war or conflict. Other times it comes through illness, economic collapse, betrayal, natural disaster, or personal tragedy. Life changes quickly. One phone call can alter someone's future. One decision can divide life into before and after. One unexpected event can completely reshape priorities. And in those moments, people discover whether their identity was built entirely on comfort or whether they developed the resilience necessary to survive uncertainty. This is why emotional adaptability is becoming one of the most important human skills of the modern age. The future will likely become more unpredictable, not less. Technological change, geopolitical instability, economic pressure, and information overload are creating societies constantly exposed to uncertainty. The people who thrive will not necessarily be the ones with the most resources. Often, they will be the ones who remain mentally flexible and emotionally disciplined during chaos. Panic rarely improves difficult situations. Clear thinking does. When fear spreads, emotional stability becomes leadership. When confusion grows, calmness becomes power. When uncertainty increases, adaptability becomes survival. And during crisis, humanity often reveals its best qualities alongside its worst. Fear can divide people, but shared danger can also unite them. Strangers help strangers. Communities organize quickly. Families rediscover closeness. Individuals who once seemed ordinary suddenly become courageous under pressure. That is one of the paradoxes of hardship. Difficulty exposes weakness, but it also reveals hidden strength. Human beings are often stronger than they realize until circumstances force them to discover it. The evacuation of thousands from a major city is therefore not only a news story, it is a reminder. A reminder that peace is precious. A reminder that stability is fragile. A reminder that civilizations must never confuse comfort with permanence. And perhaps most importantly, it is a reminder that resilience, emotional, intellectual, and moral resilience may be one of the most valuable forms of strength any society or individual can possess in an unpredictable world. True strength is rarely built during moments of comfort. Comfort can make people feel secure, but it does not always prepare them for uncertainty. Real resilience is developed when individuals and societies are forced to face pressure, instability, and fear without completely falling apart. History repeatedly shows that the greatest tests of character emerge not during peace, but during moments of crisis. When uncertainty suddenly enters a society, emotional discipline becomes just as important as physical security. Fear spreads quickly in difficult times. Rumors move faster than facts. Anxiety affects judgment. People begin imagining worst-case scenarios, and panic can sometimes create more damage than the original crisis itself. That is why calmness under pressure becomes a form of leadership. The strongest individuals are not necessarily the loudest or most powerful. Often, they are the ones capable of remaining steady while everything around them becomes uncertain. They think clearly instead of reacting impulsively. They adapt instead of collapsing emotionally. They focus on solutions rather than surrendering completely to fear. Resilience is not the absence of fear. It is the ability to continue functioning despite fear. Societies also reveal their true character during difficult moments. Crisis exposes whether people are capable of unity or whether division controls them. Some individuals respond to instability with selfishness and chaos, while others step forward with courage, cooperation, and sacrifice. In every emergency, there are ordinary people who suddenly become sources of strength for others. Doctors working without rest, emergency responders risking danger, volunteers helping strangers, families protecting one another despite uncertainty. Pressure reveals what already existed beneath the surface. That is why adaptability matters so much. The modern world changes rapidly, and societies that survive are often those willing to adjust quickly instead of clinging blindly to old assumptions. Resilient people understand that reality can shift suddenly. They do not waste energy denying change. They respond intelligently to it. The same principle applies personally. Every human being eventually experiences moments where life becomes unstable. Illness, loss, failure, betrayal, financial hardship, or unexpected tragedy can arrive without warning. And in those moments, emotional resilience becomes essential. The people who recover are usually not those who avoided hardship entirely, but those who learned how to endure it without losing themselves completely. Mental flexibility becomes survival. A resilient person understands that panic clouds judgment, but calmness creates clarity. They recognize that fear is natural, but they refuse to let fear become their master. Even during uncertainty, they continue moving forward step by step, adapting to circumstances while protecting their inner stability. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: unity becomes strength during crisis. Divided people become weaker under pressure, but connected communities become more resilient. Human beings survive difficult times more effectively when they support each other, communicate clearly, and remain focused on shared survival instead of destructive conflict. Because when uncertainty arrives suddenly, the future belongs not to those who are most comfortable, but to those who remain disciplined, adaptable, emotionally steady, and united when everything around them begins to change.